Welcome back to another SuperCoach video with me, JD. You're joining me for the round 3 review. That's right, we have just had the second best of 18 buys, second of these early round buys. We're about to head into a best 22 week. So we'll go through the team, the scores where we're at, talk some trade targets, and a little bit of philosophy for what we're trying to do with the team at this point in the year, how we're going to try and make up more ground going forward. And then we'll try and touch on some of the popular options that could be a risk this week. So whether it be Marshall, who's potentially concussed, you've got Windy, who's got the 1 week suspension, and you've got Libba, who was tactically subbed, but he was sent for scans as well. So yeah, let's jump into it. First, let's talk about how the team did. 1948, not too bad. Like, it's okay. I felt like I was on track for a slightly better score, and then Dempsey, who I don't own, which is a big blunder, and we'll talk about that. I mean, this is Chandler from last year written all over it. Went huge. So those that had him on the field, which I think would have been pretty popular, as those that might have had like Wilson and then been loopholing with Sexton or Cadman, they would have fielded Dempsey and got like a really nice score and beat a lot of the mid prices this week, which is yes, those definitely happen. So I think in my team I probably end up picking one too many mid prices. That's okay. We can hopefully continue to fix that. But yeah, so I scored 1948. It was an okay score. Could have been better. Up again. So halved my season rank again. We started at like 40,000, then 20,000. Now at 10,000. Hopefully we keep that trend up. And we did use the 3 trades in the end last week, and we will talk about that shortly, because if you follow me on Twitter, you know all about the pain. But yes, I did end up trading out Martin and Young, so I traded out 2 130s, which I think might be a career first for me. And I brought in Luke Ryan, which was good, and we'll talk about why I brought in Luke Ryan for Nick Martin in a second. And then also Massimo for Young. And then finally, I had also got rid of Sexton to bring in Tom Powell, who I'm very happy with. A 92 against a tough opposition in Carlton. Looks like he could be one of the top 6 forwards that we have for the year if he continues to hold that second midfield role at North, which looks very promising. I think he's looked very good so far this year. Definitely hitting a little bit of a breakout. Should have stuck with more kangaroos. We love those kangaroo boys. All right, so those were the trades last week. The VCC, Dacos into Bontempelli. This is obviously not great. Dacos did have a bit of a bounce back game, but not as large as what I was hoping. And then Bont against West Coast, bit of a live kill. And Bevo played around with us. I mean, tactical sub on Libba. And then, Bont, he breasted forward a lot. So I think Bont had 50-something% CBAs, which is well down on the 70-80% you'd expect from him, and he thankfully salvaged this score by kicking 3 goals in the end. But this was not a great game. And when I had I missed Butters 170 last week, I missed Gorns 170 this week. That hurts. Like it's pretty easily. I mean, it's 67 points this week, and it was another 40 last week. So it's 100 points over 2 weeks that I've lost. And given how close ranks are at the moment, that's obviously a really big deal. All right, so why did I move on Martin for Ryan? And the answer was so I could put Yo in my midfield. It meant I could get rid of Reed this week and then have Hawes and Howe on the bench, not be playing any of these defender rookies, and effectively free up this Reed spot to actually start making money for one of my rookies, because at the moment we've got 2 dead rookies. I know a lot of other people have dead rookies. And I was hoping to free that up as a way to make additional money. But of course, in doing this and just not having Dempsey went up something like 80k by himself this week, or 70k by himself this week. So, it didn't work out as well as I was hoping, but we'll look to hopefully fix that this week. We'll see. All right, so then just quickly going through defense. Ryan was great. I think he's a top 6 defender at this point, so really happy to own him. The role is filthy, and the only competition back there is Jordan Clark. For anyone that started, he's been going pretty well. I think he's averaging well over 100. 115.3, that's actually amazing, really. 120s in his last 2, 119, 110 in his last 2, 48 break even. Carlton, hardest defense this week for the Freo boys, so that's not great. We'll see how that plays out. Adelaide Oval, so at least it's not at the small ground, which would really crush the halfbacks. But yeah, he's been obviously a great option. But that's the only real competition for Ryan. Be interesting to see what happens when Chapman returns, and that could be as soon as this week, how that affects things back there. But yeah, Ryan's looking good. Dacos is a tricky one because now down 50k on the year, which is not good. Oh, my face is blocking over a lot of this, isn't it? Maybe I can move myself down here. All right, then we can see some names as we look through them. Yeah, so down 50k on the year, 178 break even, which is huge. Obviously, the concern here is what happens if Finn comes in and tags him, which is very much possible, although Finn didn't play this week, played in the twos. And I think Hawks did look more competitive at points outside of the first quarter where they got dominated by Geelong. The rest of that game, they're actually, I thought, pretty decent, to be honest. So, yeah, so do you trade Dacos knowing he's got the buy in 2 weeks? He's got the big break even now and potentially a tag coming. And I think that is definitely a consideration because there is more pain on the way. The thing that makes this like the biggest consideration for me at the moment is he just didn't look right. So he had something like I think 20 contested possessions in the first 2 games, and then the last 2 games we've seen him, he has no interest in putting his body on the line whatsoever, no interest in tackling, no interest in going for contested ball. Really, like if you think about some of the criticisms that he was receiving early on in his first year, it felt like we've been watching that same Dacos again, which is not what we saw the first 2 games. So I'm not sure if he's picked up an injury. I think like I'll give him credit for that. I think it's probably some type of injury that he's picked up that is playing out at the moment. So yeah, I'm I'm not sure what we do with Dacos here because yeah, trading him out and freeing up the cash is definitely an option this week and something I should play around with. Then get him back after his bye. And look, we've got like Grundy, Roberts, Heaney, Jordan, all in that same bye as well. So we've got a fair few guys that I mean, some of these are potentially getting traded, especially Jordan, but I think Heaney and Roberts are safe hold. Grundy might be a trade as well. We'll see. But yeah, Dacos is one I've got to consider here because if I play him into this tag, I'm basically holding him no matter what at that point. I would say, I mean, it looks very likely he's going to get to 550, which is just so cheap for those that didn't start him. Get a 100k discount. That's a really big win. So starting him's been a massive failure just because of this St Kilda game. And yeah, with him looking so scared of the contest, I just don't see how he gets the big score back. Now, the one promising part from this game was that the one promising part was they did move him back behind the ball, and if he's not going to be in there for the contest, at least being able to use his running ability and capacity and linking up through chains allows him to score well, and he showed that in the last quarter of this game as well, which saved his score. So yeah, Dacos, not sure what to do. This is a pretty scary pick, to be perfectly honest. Would much rather have Stewart, who put up another decent game despite obviously the concussion concerns. Well, he's lost a little bit of money now. I think it's just because the magic numbers been pretty impressive. But yeah, 113 average and doesn't have the buy, hasn't lost as much money, won't be going down to 550. Yeah, Sheasel, can't say much more about him. Amazing. Very good option. For those that held Young, I'll give you your flowers too. So he obviously had a pretty good bounce back game here. Still lost 16 or 17k so far for the year. But yeah, very nice bounce back game there with the 132. Be very interesting to see how he goes against Carlton, another team where maybe he can have more influence. We'll see. Is there any other defenders worth talking about? Probably not really, other than in terms of trade targets, Whitfield's back off the buy this weekend at 550k. I still think he's underpriced on what he's going to put out this year, averaging 117 so far. Up against Gold Coast, which I don't think is a particularly friendly matchup. But yeah, I do consider him to be a very good option if you're looking for a defender upgrade this week. And if I was to get rid of Dacos, then I'd probably even consider going to Whitfield over someone like a Stewart. Free up a bit of additional money by doing something like that. I mean, you could still look at going down to the like Nazai Wanganeen Millerers of the world, who at 493 is still I think a good option. And would be an even better option if Bonner gets dropped this week, which I think is probably unlikely, to be honest. I don't think they drop him based off just off one game, but despite his very big score for Supercoach, he had 17 turnovers from whatever it was, 30-something touches. So yeah, huge price move for him, up 42k, which is great for owners. Low break even, so if he plays another game, he's going to get a lot of money again. And especially against Tigers, I think he can have another good effort. But yeah, I do like once again I posted on Twitter from Ross's press conference that they were trying to preach in the fourth quarter there that they needed composure with the ball, especially on entry. And then he said it like we started off well, then a few went away from it. You have to think he'd mean someone like Bonner who had 6 turnovers from 11 touches in the last. Now, turnovers are different to clangers. Turnovers can occur from effective kicks. So you can kick it long, 50 meters to a 50-50 contest and end up with the other side, and that would be a turnover, but it would also be an effective kick. And, when Ross is talking about people blasting away, I think that's what he means. I don't necessarily think he means it was like a clanger kick, but I just think it was didn't lower the eyes, didn't take the switch or whatever it may be. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens with Bonner. But if he was to go for whatever reason, then I think Nas becomes an even bigger and more interesting option this week. And the other thing from the Saints game as well is Hill had his hand stepped on and could be injured. So wait to see what happens with that, because if they lose another winger, once again, it is the potential that one of the halfbacks gets pushed up a bit more, and that could be Bonner as well. All right, so to finish off defender options, the mid prices here. So traded in Massimo this week to jump on the price rise. Made 70k, which is obviously pretty nice. Break even of 13 with the 87 still in the system. So his job security is good. I still like the look of him. Obviously didn't get as much of it this game, but I still think he puts himself into good positions. And when he sees the ball on his side of the wing, he's going to go have more big games, I think. Is it Collingwood this week? That could be potential for a good game. What have they got after that? Gold Coast, not as keen on as matchup. Then North in 3 weeks. Okay, so I can see myself holding Massimo until at least they play North in round 7. Was that round 7 that I had it? Yeah. No, that was round 6. Round 7, no good with Swans. Round 8, Bulldogs. Okay, we'll see. I should have just clicked in his character screen. It would have been easy to scroll through that. Williams, a bit of a tricky one, because we're hoping after the bye he'd be refreshed, rejuvenated. We'd see some better scores. And look, the 70 is definitely better than the 51. Made 32k, which is okay. Break even of 21. But I mean, I think just like Massimo, we don't have good defender rookies this year. So I'm okay riding these guys on my field. They both seem to have good job security. And the scoring, I don't think, is going to be much better than this. Like I'd say like mid 70s to high 80s. But honestly, I think these defenders could be pumping out 50s. And I'm pretty glad I didn't trade in someone like Topi Pink, who many people would have, and I can totally understand why. And even the defender options we have this week as potential sideways for like Reed, Gibcus, Caulfield types, I'm not super sold on any of them. They could be good. Don't get me wrong, they could be good, but I'm not sold on any of them. So Williams and Massimo I think are okay. We'll hopefully get them. I mean, Williams hopefully get up to like 350, and Massimo maybe even more than that. With that North game, could get up to 400s before we move him on. Hoare and Howes. So I actually looped these and lost 5 points by looping Williams off with the best 18. Not great. So I'm hoping May misses another week just so Hoare gets another game, get a little bit of extra price out of him with his 21 break even. Otherwise, I think he's the one at risk in that D's defense if May comes back. Despite Howe's bad SuperCoach game, they definitely still like him a lot. And I think his score was quite badly affected by giving away a couple of frees, ended up with clangers. Actually, I think Hoare had the same thing. Port were doing a very good job lowering their knees in a way that the umpires were happy to reward that. This... hold on, go back to round 3, 4. The matchup they have this week against Adelaide seems to be pretty good from what we can see here on the little stats thing. Adelaide midfield's been blasting away, as seen in like Dawson's disposal efficiency. So they haven't been lowering their eyes and hitting targets. So Howes and Hall could potentially clean up with that being the case. I think what will end up happening here is I'll probably at least loophole one of these, then I can potentially sub Reed on. But as of right now, Reed is in my trade out plans, and that's once again why I've got Martin to Ryan, so I could trade out Reed, move Yo back there, bench Hoare and Howes this week, and not have them in the best 22 weeks. All right, moving on to the midfield. We already covered off Bont. I think there is some talk that he may still be carrying injury just based off last week. I haven't seen anything to actually confirm that. So I think this is just them taking a chance to rest him this week. if he was really banged up worse than that, then maybe he would have been tactically subbed over Libba, just given his importance to their side. But yeah, I expect him to bounce back this week and have probably a pretty good game against the Cats, whose midfield is still looking weak and should still be without Dangerfield this week. Green, we welcome back into the side, and Butters had a poorer game, that's for sure. Saved it in the second half, had quite a big second half to get back to nearly a low ton. His history against Essendon's okay, like he's tunned in the last 3 games, including 2 tons last year. I think he's one that you can consider for vice captain or captain this week. I know many of us have Livingston as the loophole, so really you're going to be looking at these 3 games beforehand, which is Adelaide, Melbourne, Brisbane, North, and Port and Essendon. And we'll go through vice captain, captain options later, but I think he's one to consider. Steele continues to be good. I just don't get it. Like, I'm enjoying it. I'm glad I'm on the pick. I still don't get it. I actually am confused he got to this big of a score in the end. Yeah, Richmond this week, he should have another good game in him. So I'll keep riding it. People in Discord already know, but I'm not happy with this score. He was so much better than this, and thought champion data did him dirty a couple of times in this game. He is still clearly West Coast's best midfielder, in my eyes anyway. He was the only reason they won any ball at all against the Bulldogs. And I think he actually should be all right to do, like, he should be okay against the Swans this week. I imagine the Swans aren't necessarily a great matchup for midfielders, but he should be able to get his hands on the ball a lot, just given their lack of ball winners. Maybe they put Robot into him to do some defensive work, but I can imagine they might not even bother with that, just given where West Coast is at as a side. In terms of the rookies on field here, all of these, great. Happy to field them every week. I can't see myself moving away from these 3 rookies on the field for a while. Roberts will get defender status, obviously, so it's, post round 6, we'll move him into defense to get some of these other guys out. But maybe by the time a Williams or a Massimo is starting to cap out in price, move him out and move Roberts in. Definitely an option. McKerch will also get DPP and be able to go back in defense. And then Sanders is looking like he might get forward status, which is actually pretty big. If his scores improve, I could see myself holding him for a long part of the season. I think he's sitting at something like 38% forward time at the moment. For those that aren't aware, at the end of round 6, if he's over 35% forward time based on positional splits at stoppages, then he will get forward eligibility and we'll be able to swing him into our forward lines. So yeah, 38%, just on a nice edge at the moment. We'll see how we go the next couple of games. He actually had his highest CBA uptick this week as well. He played 52% or something like that, but that was on the back of Libba and Bont playing less, although McRae was in the side too, who took up some. So yeah, all really good options. Carroll here did okay. Was hoping for a bigger game against North. 65's okay. We'll see how he goes against Freo this week. Wilson had a poorer game against the Dons. Essendon more competitive than what I thought they would be, to be honest. And I thought Wilson would have a better game than what he did. I wouldn't be trading him yet, though. I'm sure he's killed his cash generation for a little while. Still got 11 break even, which is all right. I guess the low base helps. Against Richmond this week, so another nice matchup for Wilson. To kind of restart his cash gen. If he tanks again this week, then I could see the reason, like people trading him on just because GWS, Western Bulldogs, Port, that next 3 is pretty tough before it opens up against North and Hawks. So we'll see what happens this week with his scoring, but I get the feeling Ross Lyon really likes him and will continue to play him. They're obviously trying to play more youth in that Saints side this year, and I don't really see anyone that's obvious replacement for him. And then Jai Clark. So in the end, like a decent hold in the wet, was able to put some good moments together with the 68 now. So 60, 68 in his last 2. Obviously that sub 13 rolls out. His break even is now negative 39. So yeah, I mean, we should be able to make some good money. And he's got North in 2 weeks, that round 5 matchup. So, I mean, I think I can't see myself now moving him on before then, and hopefully he can get to 250k. I don't think it'll be the full 150 for him, but in a decent spot. In terms of rookies that I'm missing in the midfield, I guess Sharp is one that had another good game on the weekend at 71, so might end up being the better option than Carroll just because he doesn't have to deal with Walsh coming back. Now at the same price, how cute. Exactly the same. Yeah, so doesn't have to deal with Walsh coming back, and so the job security front probably helps him, and Chapman and stuff might affect role, but probably not. I think the only flag for him is like these matchups in Carlton and Port Adelaide for the next two are obviously pretty tough before it opens up against West Coast. I imagine a lot of us will still be, if you have him, we'll be holding him through to West Coast. But he looks a very good option and probably want to have more confidence in fielding over Carroll. Although even though Carroll's been getting CBAs, we'll see. I think he got another like 40-ish%. They use Kennedy a bit more in the midfield, which I'm hoping they don't do this week against Freo, but we'll see. Ruck's here. So Gorn and Grundy. I mean, Gorn, huge game. This was part of the reason for picking him in the preseason was just that he had keeper upside and definitely looking at it like it at the moment. So 162, 113, 177 in his 3 games so far. Huge scores. He's gone up, 52k. It's like rookie money that he's making here right now. For a 78 break-even, he's also going up more this week. I think people will be asking if I don't have Gorn, what do I do? And it probably matters who you have. But I think, for example, if you had like Bro and Marshall, you could probably consider the trade. Marshall's got a 167 break even now against Richmond, which, you know, he's got decent history against. Nank isn't the hardest to score on. And I think the other thing is Marshall's fixture does open up, like Briggs, English, Soldo, and even Cherry. I think these are all games that are pretty easy for him to score on, as well as Nank. So I think that's the hard one. If you've got English, you're probably not moving him on. Yeah, 140 break even, but it's fine. He can easily put up 140 in some of these next few games coming up. Look at his scores against Essendon, 134, 123, 204. Wow. What do you do? Because if you've got Grundy, I mean, you could go Grundy to go on this week. You could definitely try that on. But Grundy has West Coast. Went 144 last time they played in round 4, and I think that might have been the game Gorn went down early. The top scorer against West Coast every game this year, including the preseason, has been a Ruck. So it's hard to move on from Grundy, but Gorn feels kind of like must-have because he's still cheapish compared to the 700k Rucks, 50k discount. I mean, I think his matchups do get a little bit harder now because they've got Adelaide, Brisbane, who they went huge on, but that wasn't Big O, and it definitely wasn't Big O plus Darcy Fort running 2. And then, I mean, he's played good against Nankervis last time, and that would have been back when he was solo rucking. Although, was Nank in that side, or was he injured? He's probably in that side. Did Nank play every game last year? Ooh, don't know. So, yeah, a little bit hard. And then I guess the other one is, like, if you're in Cherry, what do you do? Because Cherry's at least made a bit of money. He's got a low break even. I think you just ride that out. I think you just keep running with Cherry if you've got Cherry and don't worry about getting to Gorn. Hard. That's hard option. Like that's hard. The other one here is, I guess, if you've got Luke Jackson here, then getting Luke Jackson back into your forward line and putting like someone else up into like Gorn, I think that would make sense too. Just quickly on like rookie rucks. Conway had one game today and put up, I think, at 83, which is a very respectable score. Stanley was just being rested, so it's interesting to see if he'll actually get more games. I actually thought he looked very good compared to what Stanley does in, you know, a tough matchup in Reeves. So I'd be keen to see more of Stanley, but sorry, not Stanley, more of Conway, but I'm not sure if Scott will do that. So need to go and listen to his press conference, see what he says about Conway and resting and all that stuff. All right, now into the forward line. Bit of a disaster this week, and once again, as mentioned, no Dempsey. So that's the big one. We'll be talking about whether or not we can still get him this late. So him putting up a 86, which was better than pretty much most of the mid prices I had here. Sucks. Like, didn't field a Wilson or a Reed who... Oh, actually, I might have had Reed on field somewhere. But yeah, like these scores were also poor. The really big disappointment was Billings here, and I think it stuffed up trade plans this week, to be honest. Power's good, as I mentioned. Fisher's just been so-so. His break-even's still low enough. And I think that's the tricky part with all these forwards is like their break-evens are still like mid-40s. They're all very achievable, apart from Billings, who has to go. Power's obviously been great, and Heaney has been one of the best picks this year. I probably should have had him captain this week, to be honest. I should have done something like Vice Bont into C Heaney. I just didn't. Kind of didn't trust it, but I ended up doing C Heaney in fantasy format, so I don't know. Don't know that. I just missed another good score. So against like an injured Tigers team, it's just kind of obvious. But anyway, so lowest score of the year is 128 so far. And then 2 other scores over that. He's got West Coast this week, who we went 150 last year. Even if he plays forward, I think he can kick a bag. So like that's, I mean, captain, vice captain spoiler, but I think he's probably the captain option this week, especially given that our loophole has to be used before then. And I don't really have any other options I like after that. I mean, I guess if you had Sarong, you could consider Bont bounce back, maybe. Steele against that Richmond team, once again, I think you could consider that too, but not sure how hard he's going to have to work. And then Green against Gold Coast, like it's definitely possible, but Gold Coast to, score decently themselves, which makes sharing the pie a little bit harder. So, yeah, anyway, Heaney C is probably an option. All right, so team, what are we doing here? So there's a couple of goals that I have at the moment with the side, which, as you can tell with how I've talked about last week's trades, is trying to get these rookie rucks off and just free up the cash generation. So that's kind of goal one. The second one is to get the forward rookies off the field because I've just had really low faith in a lot of them consistently scoring. I think that has to change now with Dempsey, who definitely is a fieldable option. And the question for me will be, can I go on him now that he's 220? From what I've looked at in the past, when rookies make like 150, 160, 180K, most of that money, like 50%, is normally made in the first week. And then, or it's like 50% in the first week or first couple of weeks. And then, over the next like 6 weeks, they make the remaining 50%, something like that. And so anytime you jump on them, even just after one price rise, you are losing a lot of the potential value they can have. I think the thing with Dempsey, though, is that he is an on-field option, and the Cats have good matchups. So they've got the Dogs, which is probably not the best matchup this week, but then the week after they've got North as well. So I can see him, potentially putting together a couple of more decent scores and making a fair bit of money. So no Dempsey, definitely a big miss. Let's have a look in here for trade ins and outs. I mean, yeah, Billings out. Jordan against West Coast. I know he's got the bye the week after, but that doesn't make sense to me. Fisher, I can see people getting off for sure. The Norwood ground that they're playing at is the smallest ground by far, and so traditionally not great for uncontested players, much better for contested players. You'd expect high stoppage game and probably not going to suit Fisher, although Brisbane has been a good matchup for halfbacks. Fife, I guess you can always have this sub risk over his head, but a more contested style against Carlton, I think, probably helps him this week. I think he can get back to better scoring than this. Howes, yeah, I think he's still going to have quite a low break even, so I kind of can't see why you'd be moving him on. That feels really weird, 30 break even. Maybe I just don't have other popular options that people are moving on. Traded in my team, yeah. So Darcy tunned in game one, didn't score as well against West Coast, which is probably a little bit surprising given he was playing forward, and he's going to be up and down playing forward. The challenge here with Darcy is he's holding out Lob, who I think played pretty well in the twos, but I know they like Darcy, and he's a former number one pick, or he would have been as a father if he wasn't a father-son. So I think they do want to get games into him, and I haven't seen anything to suggest that he shouldn't keep playing, to be honest. Draper looked really good in flashes for Freo. I'm not entirely sure about his job security, but I get the feeling that he's well liked based on what I've heard so far. Once again, two tougher matches coming up, and then West Coast, but key defenders a little bit different in those regards as a rookie. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see on Draper if he has to take one of Mackay or Kerno. That's obviously pretty rough. Flanders, I like as a trade-in target this week. Like in a line where we don't have many clear top options, I think Flanders is right up there with Heaney is an obvious going to be top in that line towards the end of the year. Brown is a good shout for a defender rookie downgrade as well. I think he's 60, probably undersells how well he played in that game. Yeah, nice matchup against the Saints this week. The thing I don't know about is his job security, who they've got coming back for Tigers. But I do like Brown as an option. I think if I was getting a defender rookie this week, he'd be one that I'd be considering. And then, yeah, Whitfield, I mentioned already, I like him as an option as well. I'm surprised that most traded out doesn't have day costs. That's like really interesting to me. Let's have a look at just in here as well. Is there a way for me to see most traded out? There surely is, right? Might have to be with... maybe if we're going to coach's choice. Round own change. We look at negatives. Billings, Caulfield, Jordan, Fisher. Okay, so it's a lot of the guys I own. That always makes you feel good. Oof, yikes. So yeah, so wanting to get these on-field rookies off. Let me finish that train of thought before we move on to the rest of the trades. But yeah, I think Dempsey can obviously be fielded now. So I've gone one mid-price or two heavy in the forward line. In the mids, happy to field these three rookies. And then I think we'll start to look at some of the upgrade options in here early as well. So some of the ones I like are Luke Davies Uniacke, who he's a 173 break even, so he's going to lose more cash. What is he going to get down to? 550k if he puts together a 102 and a 120, and then that leads into matchups of Hawks, Crows, St Kilda, Gold Coast, Essendon, Port, West Coast. So I think at 550 he becomes a very good value. I know the injury history is there, but he's well underperformed what he can produce. Jordan Dawson is another one, 174 break even, and just uncharacteristically bad with the ball for him. I think that form will turn around. I think Manny Nick said there's a fair few Crows that are out of form at the moment, and he's an obvious one. So with 103 and 100, it has Dawson going down to 535 before playing Essendon North, then Port, Brisbane, Collingwood, West Coast, Hawks, Richmond. So this run from like 6 to 13 looks pretty good outside of one or two games there. So yeah, if I could get him for 530ish, 550ish around that point in the next 2 weeks, I think that looks like a pretty decent option. Merritt, I know a lot of people have flagged. The problem is I thought he was going to have the poor game in the weekend, but the fourth quarter he really came home strong and put up a 130. So it's not going to be cheap to get him, and I'm not going to pay up 650. But from round 7, that Anzac Day spot where they've got Collingwood, West Coast, GWS, North, Richmond, like 4 out of those 5 games, just very soft matchups. That'd be great to own him for that stretch, but I just don't think it's going to happen. And then the other one who put his name up to get himself cheap was Goulden, who's now got a 124 break even. I think he still has a 149 in there, but that 73, he now becomes a big watch. I know they've got West Coast this week, and he could go huge and undo that. But yeah, if he has another poor game, then he's similarly someone that could get down to the 550s in the coming weeks after his bye and be a target for us as well. So I think those are some early upgrade targets. The guys like Sarong, for example, who I'd love to own, but 650k is already gone. I think Merritt's probably in the same boat. If you've got Libba, what do you do? If he's out this week, I think you just trade. I'd probably consider trading anyway, but you might have bigger issues. If you've got Windhager, what do you do? I know George brought him in this week, and to be honest, I didn't think it was a bad trade. Just very unlucky. I'm not surprised that he didn't score as well this week, just because St Kilda and Essendon are two of the lowest stoppage sides in the league, and Windy's gonna get his points around stoppage. So the matchup against Richmond this week, I could have seen him bouncing back, but now he's going to miss it. So it's just really tricky. I think you just move on. And if you don't have Massimo, you could look there still. Otherwise, I think Bramble is a decent option. Had 5 kick-ins, but that was in Richard's absence. He'll be back this week. But he's been solid for them anyway, putting together kind of like 90s, 80s, 90s, 100 in that first game as well. Geelong, maybe a little bit of a tougher matchup this week. I don't know what SuperCoach has them as. Tricky, middle of the pack. But then Essendon and Saints after that, which should be softer games for Bramble to go into. It's just hard because you're going from mid-price at a mid-price at the moment, which doesn't feel good. And I don't think the rookie downgrade options are great either. If you could get them up to Whitfield, then that makes a lot of sense to me. Or even Miller once again, if we talk, like if Bonner's dropped like we talked about. But yeah. So yeah, that's kind of the plans at the moment. Get these defender rookies off field. I think Dempsey's okay, but then I don't want any other forward rookies on field. And then I'm happy to field these 3 rookie mid prices for a period of time. But I would like to upgrade this M5 spot sooner rather than later. The other consideration is just with buys next week. Dacos I can probably cover all right with one of the D's defenders. Grundy won't be coverable, so if I can move him on to Marshall, that would be ideal. And then Jordan's the other one where if he doesn't put up a good score and stalls in cash gen, he's going to need to be moved along as well. It's just looking at the potential rookie targets for next week. There's not a ton in there that like really spoke to me. So we'll go 200k range and we'll go, 1 game or less. Is there a way to lower the break evens? Probably. Okay, so if we just go round 3 points, sort by that. So we had Conway, which you already mentioned, but may not get a game. Got Huswaite, who was subbed out, and I'm not sure he actually plays again. And that's probably the concern whether they bring in Finn and bench Huswaite. You got Sonzi, who might have okay job security with now with Lynch being out for a period of time, and I think Bolter got injured too, and he's no Bolter was like yeah those two forwards being injured. So I think Sonzi's job security might be okay. He's been playing forward, right? I think he has been. Yeah. But yeah, just wait and see. I mean, like 150k for 33 is not exactly great. Caleb Mitchell was the subbed on rookie for the Swans and he did okay. Hasty was the subbed on rookie for the Saints. I honestly didn't notice him enough. Poor Walter got injured. Moyle dropped. So yeah, I mean, it just doesn't look very good from these one game played rookie options as to like who we could potentially jump into next week. So I'm a bit conscious of that. The only other one was like Warner, which I can't see at the moment for Freo, who'd played one game and did well in it so far. I don't know what filters I've put on to not see him. Maybe he's too expensive in this format. No, 134k. So he had the 63 and was concussed, I think, at 3/4 time. So he could have had an 80. He should be available from this week, but I don't know if he gets his spot back with some of the other like selection pressures kind of happening. All right, so trades this week for me. So the whole reason why I did this Martin trade was to be able to move Yo back. Hold on, let's just do it properly. Be able to move Yo back and get Reed out of the side so I could get another cash generating rookie. So let's do that and actually come good on that promise. So I think Sam Darcy I'm still interested in owning. You won't get Ruck DPP, unfortunately. That would be amazing. You'd actually need to have like English sit for a week for whatever reason and Darcy play full-time Ruck for that to happen. But I don't think it will. And then, yeah, do I get in Dempsey this week is the next big question. And so, yeah, no defender rookies on, which is good. And yeah, I think I do. I think I want to get rid of Billings because he stalled his cash gen significantly. And Dempsey looks like he's an on-field option. And I'm sure now that I'm trading Billings, he can find a way to go 140 this week. But Dempsey looks like the better every week on-field option. So I actually feel like I'm getting money and upgrading on-field by doing that trade. And then the last trade here I would have liked to have done is Fisher to Flanders. I actually would have liked to have done it from probably Fife. And I am unfortunately $4,700 short. And so I don't know how many points that is from Billings. I have a feeling that's about 10 points short that he was, something like that, to not have enough money to do that trade, which is very frustrating. So if I was to move on Fisher, I think the only option I really could look at is like Zorko, who played, I think, more half back now, and they've been using him back there. And he can, we all know he can score well, but his injury history is awful. His age, not good. He's would bring a lot of fun Vegas stories to the team though, so I could consider that. The only other option here is, I guess, yeah, if I trade out Dacos here and bring in someone like a Whitfield or a Stewart, and maybe I'll have to consider this, like, because that opens up to 200k if I don't do this trade. 143, which is still nice, and save the boost. Because yeah, if we don't have any rookie downgrades next week, we can't really start upgrade season, which is a bit of a worry. Yeah, it's a bit of a worry because I was hoping we'd actually get the first upgrade next week, But yeah, like I could just bank this money and go like Grundy to Marshall next week, for example, just off the back of this. It probably means a whole Jordan and Heaney and all that type of stuff. But yeah, and then what are we going to do here? Oh, I'm probably going to bench Reed and play Darcy. I think Darcy's got the matchup against Geelong. And if they're playing Conway again, that could be nice. Cadman's got Gold Coast, so I don't really want to test that. Reed, I just don't have faith in fielding at the moment. Against the Swans, probably not too. Carroll against Frio, I think it's a tougher matchup. So yeah, I'm a little bit unsure whether it's Darcy. It's definitely not Wilson. It's probably not Clark either. So I mean, I'm probably looking at like Carroll or Darcy as this last on-field spot. Is what I'm weighing up this week for this side. But this is then the weakest spot in my side. Is there's like this F6 or like M8 spot. If it was to be Carroll on, and that's the one I want to get rid of sooner rather than later, or find a good rookie downgrade option too. But I think we might be waiting a couple of weeks on that. So yeah, should I boost Dacos out? It feels like a weird use of a boost, but if Finn McGuinness is named and I don't see any other better trades this week, I could see myself doing that for sure. My only other real option is like get my boy Nick Martin back, but he's playing in Port now, which like it's a tougher matchup. So I could get Nick Martin back from one of these 300k guys, but I think in all honesty, I probably just ride out their 40 break evens another week and see what comes to me rather than forcing trades. Dacos, I'll be thinking about whether I boost you out all week or not. I really did not like what I saw in terms of how you played. I'm going to be listening to any Collingwood articles with keen interest this week, or any interviews to see if they talk about him, any potential injuries that he's carrying or anything like that. All right, so vice captain this week. As I mentioned, I mean, I think Gawn, just given the form he's been in over those 3 games against Adelaide, is definitely an option. But Rob, I think, is one of the harder rucks to score on. And the other option, did we talk about Keane? Because I think that is actually probably the only other option that in the back line for that isn't Windhager. He looked pretty good, 118 on the weekend. So he's going to have that in his next 2 games. Melbourne, Carlton, Essendon, North is the next 4. I could see someone going him over Bramble just because of money considerations. So yeah, sorry, back to vice captain, captain. So yeah, given the loophole is Livingston, let's get that set up now. I'm probably going Heaney C, and I'm picking between Butters against Essendon or Gawn against Rob as the vice captain. And I don't have strong feelings either way about this, so I'm probably just going to go with the crowd on which one's better. I mean, they're both averaging 130. Those are good numbers. So, yeah. Too bad Ryan's not playing early. That'd be a sneaky one. And Sheasel, I would consider, but just because that Norwood Oval, I think that is a poorer ground for them to play on. Bit of a concern for any of these Sheasel, McKercher, Fisher picks. Yeah, even though the matchup against Lions good, small ground not good, and then for the PAL LDU types, imagine that actually ends up being pretty positive. Okay, so a bit of a longer episode this week, just talking through a little bit of strategy, where the team's at, talking about where the failures have been so far, and it's definitely just went one mid-pricer too heavy when I should have got Dempsey instead. It's okay. You live and learn. Like when you start bringing in these value guys, I like describe it like you're trying to find delicate balance between cutting the bad rookies and getting in the good value guys that can get you points and get you cash on field. And just trying to get that balance right where you get the exact right number of each is always tough. And it looks like I just went one too aggressive this year, where I missed out on one really good rookie in Dempsey, and I could have got rid of mid prices instead and got them up to a primo. Like having a Flanders or a Jackson over what was eventually Billings or Fisher in the forward line would have just been a lot better for point scoring across these first few rounds. And I'm assuming teams that look very like mine, but had that decision right, will have ended up pretty far ahead. But as always, hit me up with your comments and questions below, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.